State and local law enforcement agencies have issued reports warning of a, quote, highly sensitive and politically charged threat environment in the wake of the leaked Supreme Court draft majority opinion on abortion rights. So Catherine Herridge obtained this bulletin, and she is joining us now to talk a little bit more about what she uncovered. Catherine, thanks for joining us. What do these reports tell us about the current security posture?
Well, Anne-Marie, these are called situational awareness bulletins. They're designed to give maximum visibility to state and local law enforcement. And here at CBS News, we were able to review these bulletins from Maryland, New Jersey, Florida, as well as the national capital region. So that's greater Washington, D.C., including the Supreme Court. And if there was one theme that seemed to emerge, we saw it in this bulletin from May 11th. And it read in part, events will remain highly sensitive and politically charged in the near term. And then it went on to say that there could be a tipping point to either violence or criminal activity, which could transpire exceedingly quickly.
So, Catherine, what kinds of threats are officials most concerned about?
You can think about these threats, Vlad, in three distinct categories or buckets. The first that these bulletins describe is foreign nation-state actors. So think of countries like Iran, China, Russia, who try and use these information operations to precipitate violence inside the United States or to undermine confidence in institutions. The second would be extremist groups, both foreign and domestic, again, trying to hijack the current threat environment to their advantage. And then thirdly, and perhaps the most worrying to law enforcement, is the lone actor. This is someone who is inspired to act. They're not doing it as part of a broader conspiracy. So it's much more difficult for law enforcement to intervene and to block any kind of activities or threats they may choose to launch.
I think if there's anything we have all learned after January 6th is you cannot ignore that chatter that you see online. What have we seen play out so far, both online and across, the country in terms of demonstrations and that sort of thing?
Anne-Marie, I think the simplest way to describe it to folks at home is that you have these two tiers. You have what's happening in the physical world. We've seen this in the last couple of weeks. So they can be demonstrations, whether at the Supreme Court or outside the justices' homes, or the targeting of houses of worship or abortion clinics or threats to those groups. And then you have this online or virtual environment where so much of the chatter is implied violence or implied threats. So the trick for investigators to understand is when that online chatter and threat information starts to cross that virtual threshold into the physical world, and they feel that there is sufficient cause to try and intervene.
And so what's been the response then, Catherine, from FBI and federal law enforcement officials?
Well, based on our reporting here at CBS News, it does appear to us, based on these bulletins, that local and state law enforcement have been very forward-leaning on this issue. Now, we've reviewed four, including one for the national capital region, which I would argue is probably one of the most highly sensitive and politically charged environments. Homeland Security and the FBI late last week had a call with what are called fusion centers. Fusion centers are one of the legacy groups that was set up after 9/11 to be sort of very forward-leaning and proactive in terms of intelligence gathering. So they're trying to bring together the current threat matrix for all of those involved. But again, based on these bulletins, it does seem that many states are being very forward-leaning, trying to anticipate what we may see in the next weeks ahead.
So we know that on Saturday, Planned Parenthood, Women's March, and other abortion rights advocates plan to rally at the Washington Monument at noon. I wouldn't be surprised if there are also others gathering there who are on the other side of the argument as well. So things can get heated. Do we have any idea just how many people are expected to turn up and just how law enforcement and police are preparing for this?
Well, based on the permit that has been lodged with the National Park Service, we're talking about upwards of 15,000 people could be at that march. And your point is really well taken, Anne-Marie. It's not just people who come for obviously protected First Amendment activity and to express their views, but then also counter demonstrators who may arrive who also have that same assurance for First Amendment protected activity. But you have to throw into this mix, again, this idea of either a lone actor or a foreign nation state, which tries to take this heightened threat environment and either push out an information operation to give people the wrong impression about what's happened, but try and be a catalyst to intensify the sentiments on the ground so you cross that threshold either to violent activity or to criminal activity, as these bulletins say could be potential.
Really fascinating. As always, Catherine, excellent reporting. We appreciate you sharing it with us here on CBS News. And you can read more of Catherine's reporting on these threat warnings right now. Just go to cbsnews.com.